Welcome. Welcome. Hi, I'm Darty Wesley, and we're here to conclude our conversation about my book, How to Be the Real You. Thank you for watching. First of all, I'd like to thank so much from my heart Patricia Wagner for allowing us to create this opportunity to talk about my book here on living in heart-centered gratitude. And she's working the technology in the background. Thank you so much, Patricia. I'd like to also thank all of my participants. Thank you so much. I have so enjoyed your comments and look forward to your comments and feedback today. So thank you, and thank you again for watching. I'm going to talk about me a little bit. I'm going to talk about the book a little bit, and I'm going to share all that we're going to talk about with the final chapter of the book. So for those who don't know me, I am Darty Wesley, and I am an attorney, an author, a death diva, and a wisdom share. And I consider myself a resource for evolutionary consciousness, and I consider myself a practical visionary with practical tips and tools to support us on our journey as we step into our timeless true selves, into the vastness that we are, as we step onto our new timelines and onto this level of the new reality that we're birthing right here, right now. I've been on the metaphysical, esoteric, spiritual path since I was 15 years old, so I bring a very broad and wide and long experience to share with you every step of the way as we have coherent conversations about everything. Since this is our last conversational book study on how to be the real you, I want to let you know that I have created some mini courses called Navigating the New Reality, and I put together a Meet and Monitor Your Monkey Mind is the first series, and the second series is the 5 Keys to Freedom, and it's based on an in-depth analysis of the kind of tips, the kind of tools, and the kind of keys that I talked about in the book. So for more information about how to access these mini courses and to learn more about me and what I'm up to, please sign up for my mailing list. You can go to my website, www.dartywesley.com, and check out my YouTube channel. There's lots there too. The book that I created is really based on something that E.E. Cummings said, which was, it takes courage to grow up and be who you are, and be who you are. That really moved me to start finding out more about what made me tick. And so I wrote the book describing the processes and procedures and the kind of experiences I had along the way, which supported my journey of becoming authentic Darty, which happens every day, and it is a lifelong journey, of course. So in the book, I share about self-discovery and why it's so important. I talk about our monkey mind and why it's important to meet and monitor and tame and train our monkey mind. So many people's lives are being run by their monkey mind and they're unaware of it. And then I talk about the 5 keys to freedom, the doors that unlock those places within ourselves which support us, that can manage our lives better. And they're accepting yourself, losing the past, allowing yourself to be open, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, stop caring what other people think, and being open and honest with yourself and others. And then those keys opening move us into emotional maturity, which we talked about last time, and coming to a place of emotional maturity brings us to a place of spiritual maturity. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're here to talk about spiritual maturity and kind of the conclusion of the book, which is all about a new beginning, a new you, how to be and exercise the real you. So let's begin. I'm here with John Schiller, Dave Wagner, Danny Rita, Marianne McKinsey Gennaro, Donna Mulrooney, Michelle Rupert, and Paula Wansley. Hi, guys. Come on, participate. Please turn on your cameras so we can see your lovely faces. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm excited. As usual, I'd like to say if anybody has any comments or any feedback or anything you want to say before we dive in, please turn on your mics and share. Anything anybody wants to say? Crickets? Okay. So let's begin then. So, what is spiritual maturity? I feel both spiritual maturity and emotional maturity bring us to a new level of perspective of things that we may not have seen before, that really kind of open our lives and give us more excitement and more an enticing perspective on things, and also more challenging because it's something we have to do as we move along. This is incorporating this evolutionary journey is really a form of life mastery, is what it is. As we continue on, this really sets us on our path in a way and gives us the ability to manage our lives in ways we may not have thought imaginable, and can really change things for us. And as I said in my book, spirituality, I believe, is neither a belief system nor an ideology. It is the surrender of our ego to cosmic consciousness, to all that is, to that creative power within each and every one of us that is all part of everything and that flows. And so no matter what you call that energy, whether you call it God or the universe or your higher self or our timeless true self or cosmic consciousness, whatever that is, what I think spiritual maturity is allows that creative energy to flow through us and makes us feel good from the inside out, because we're coming from the inside when we look for the kind of things that support us, that make us happy, that fulfill us, and that make us feel good. It comes from within. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on the general topic of spiritual maturity. And then after that, we'll go into the kind of the different aspects I talk about in the book of what the different aspects of spiritual maturity. So what is it and how does it work in your life? And what do you think about what I said in the book there about that? Who wants to go first? You're unmuted, Marianne. Are you on? Oh. No?
I'm here. Hold on.
Okay.
Why is it it's doing some funny stuff. Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so spirituality and what does it mean for me?
Yeah, spiritual maturity and spirituality, if you want to do that too.
Well, I'm still growing up. I'm still becoming more mature every single day. And I have to say that with everything in the book, with not taking things personal, with, our reactions to every step of this book leads to where I am today. And the spiritual part of it is when I had my huge awakening. And in reading this chapter, Darty, I have to say that I thought I knew it all, or I had more of a big picture of spiritual maturity until I read this book, until I read these chapters. And I said, well, wait a second, I need a little bit more to dig deeper in this area. So I just have to say spirituality, maturity for me has opened up so many doors of self-confidence, of being able to speak to people. It's in your book. I'll go through the non-judgment to non-attachment. Non-attachment to intuition. Oh gosh, if I would have listened to my intuition. And there's just so much in this book. But for spiritual maturity, I would say the book opened up my mind to say you're not there yet, but you will be.
Excellent. It is a lifelong journey after all.
It is. It's an everyday process.
That's kind of the conclusion. Yeah, we're all on it. I agree. Thank you, Marianne. Anyone else want to comment on spiritual maturity, generally speaking? Danielle.
Sure. Yes. In one of the big things that that you repeated in your book was about being responsible for our own happiness. So spiritual maturity, being responsible for our own happiness. Oh, that hit me differently this time. Just like Marianne. It was like being responsible, what does that mean? How do we do that? So this entire chapter just broke it down and helped me dive into that. I love where you shared spiritual maturity is a commitment. It's a way of life. And that really warmed my heart because I think all of us, here in the book study, just can agree this has been so life-changing. And we want to evolve. We want to be the best versions of ourselves, and obviously the real, our true selves as well. But I took that one with spiritual maturity, taking responsibility for our own happiness.
I appreciate that because I know how hard it was for me personally when I went, holy moly, when I realized and decided, because there's a choice in everything, which we talked about last time. I decided that nothing can make me happy. Nothing out there, no one or anything can make me happy. I am in charge of my own happiness. If I'm not happy, that's up to me. I have to change it up. If I want to be unhappy, I'll be unhappy. It's my choice. But that's when I realized, and that was a big move for me, a big leap, when I realized that I'm what makes me happy. Nobody else can make you happy. And that's a big one because wait a minute, things make me happy. No, things don't make us happy. We make ourselves happy behind things, but we are the ones who decide what makes us happy. Now we can be annoyed at things. We might like things. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's different than just bringing yourself to understanding. I mean, that's like a quantum leap, like we talked about with taking responsibility for your whole life. When you realize that we are in that mode, it's the same thing when it comes to creating our own happiness. We make ourselves happy. That's one a lot of folks don't get. Thank you, Danielle.
I'd like to jump in,
Sure.
see where I go with this. I wanted to find something that I personally feel, something called a state of being. In other words, I wake up in the morning and sometimes I just feel like hell. I didn't sleep right, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know how I can really judge my level of spirituality, my level of emotionality, because I just feel blah. And other times when I've been in hospitals, when I've been sick, the only time I feel I can really judge where I'm at is when I'm in a reasonably healthy state. And then look at the pieces. Do you have is there anything you would say to some people about that?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, John.
Okay.
And I change it up myself too. When I wake up from not having a good night's sleep or whatever, usually I'm kind of cranky. My husband says, "You got your cranky pants on," and I'm kind of cranky. And and I know then, within a short period of time, because it does take some time for me to get to that place, I take the time to go, okay, I don't want to be cranky. I don't want to be all pissed up. I don't want to feel whatever I'm feeling, right? And so we can change that. And so I start thinking of things that I want. It's kind of something I learned from Abraham, Esther and Abraham a long time ago. And that's something that she taught me, or Abraham said, that I just went, whoa, and started doing it and found it really works. And that's called pivoting. And when I find myself in a place where I don't like, I pivot. Instead of thinking about what I don't like, what I don't want, I start thinking about what I do want and what I do like. So if I'm not feeling good and I got my cranky pants on, I start thinking, wait a minute. What do I want? What do I want? I want to feel good. What do I need to do to feel good? So I switch it up myself. It's a practice. Like, all these things I'm talking about, it's a practice. And so that's the practice I use when I got my cranky pants on, when I don't know where I am, when I don't feel good. And I rest. And I also, John, I allow myself to feel what the heck I'm feeling. I don't need to put a story around it. If I feel like junk, I'm going to feel like junk. I'll just lay here. Thank you very much. But I don't make up a story about it. I don't try to do anything with it. And so you just be. It's like you said, state of being, just being with it. Sometimes it's just being with it and then being able to make the choice and taking the time on it. That's what I do, especially when I got my cranky pants on.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
And anything else on maturity? Go, Donna.
So the thing that is very indicative of spiritual maturity for me is letting go of wanting to control other people and realizing that they are on their own journey. I have nothing to do with it. They have every right in the world to say what they said, do what they did, be who they are, be how they're being, whatever it is, they have every right in the world, and it has nothing to do with me. And this was a lesson that was very long coming and hard to learn for me, because I grew up thinking I was general manager of the universe and somehow was responsible for, you know, the scowl on your face or the smile on someone else, whatever it might be. And I don't like, you know, I've done some work. Where did that come from? Was I taught it? Did I take it on? I think a little bit of both, but regardless, is just really letting go of that. To me, it's liberating, it's freeing, and it's so necessary. So that's kind of what stands out the most for me.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. That's kind of what I talk about when we talk about our what is it? Is it compassion and tolerance? I don't know. It's one, maybe it's non-attachment. I'm sure it's one of those that I talk about where, you know, where everyone's on their own soul journey, and we'll get there. And I agree. And that's something you repeat yourself, remind yourself of repeatedly, because so many times, and it's learning that it's a control is an illusion. We can't control anything. I mean, we control how we think and we think, but even then, it's like, you know, when we are connected to spirit, when we're spiritual beings, when we are aware of the consciousness of all that is, that's where our energy comes from. And the higher and the more we can open that portal and become more connected to that level of consciousness, which is us moving into the fifth dimension, in my opinion. But another story, another time. But yes, I agree. Lots of esoteric conversation to be had. So, okay, anybody else? Generally, I mean, we're going to move into non-attachment or anything else. Michelle, you got anything?
Yes, mine's more like with Danielle. What hit me the most was I'm responsible for my happiness. But what I really looked at is I'm responsible for anything I think and feel. If I feel bad, great, angry, I can change all that. And it kind of, I mean, as everyone was talking about, it kind of reminded me of your love and trust. Like sometimes I spin out on really dumb things. And this week I've used love and trust. And the other comment, it's just the way it is. It's just, you know, it just happened, Michelle. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Boy, did that really shift things for me.
Good.
Oh my. I mean, I gained energy from doing that.
Yes.
And but again, it was a choice to decide to do that and not spin out of control and be all angry and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then being responsible for my own happiness, that took me a long time to learn. And if it wasn't for your book and other books and other things to get me along this path, I mean, your book was tremendous. It seems like it's all the tools in one book for us to go, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So it's yeah. So spiritual maturity, man, I'm just the tip of the iceberg. I've been around a while and I'm just learning that
It is a lifelong journey. I agree.
And
Anybody else generally on spiritual neutrality? Okay, Paula.
I just wanted to say that for me, I find that spiritual maturity is fluid. Like sometimes I have spiritual maturity and sometimes I don't. And a very clear way to distinguish it is if I am really centered and present, if I'm connected with my like true divine essence or my true self, either through meditation or just clearly through intention. I mean, if I just state it right now, I want to be there, and I am, then I feel like I'm so spiritually mature, and I can just feel the difference between like my ego driving the bus or my monkey mind driving the bus, the lower, the not as mature, Let's just call it
Not
that.
as
It's
mature,
not
yes.
quite as mature. So it's almost like a conscious decision to become spiritually mature, but you can do it in an instant with your intention, at least in my experience. But it's the matter, it's the question of, do I choose it? Do I choose to be spiritually mature in this moment? Or am I just gonna let it rip? You know, in that sense.
That's kind of the
It's
way
a
with all
choice.
of this. It's our choice in every moment, how we want to be. And we can certainly choose not to be mature and not to be mature at any moment if that's what we choose. Certainly the path is long in that way. Any other comments basically on spiritual maturity before we move into the first aspect, which is non-attachment? Okay, we're good. Let's move into non-attachment then. So in the book, I offer a few aspects of what spiritual maturity incorporates. And one of the first things I talked about, because that was one of the first things that came up for me, was non-attachment. And when we talk about non-attachment as an aspect of spiritual maturity, I feel essentially that that's an unwillingness, like you said, Michelle, an unwillingness to accept what's going on in front of us. It's not about, being aloof and not caring and that kind of thing. Because a lot of people think being attached is about people we care about, our family. We're attached to our families, we're attached to friends, we're attached to those kind of things. And that's not the kind of attachment I talk about when I talk about that. And I think when we find ourselves feeling disappointed or angry or frustrated or sad or whatever, that's what gives us the opportunity that gives us an opportunity to see where we need our work. Because there's no reason for us to bring those feelings because of what someone else has done. So I'm anxious to hear your thoughts too on non-attachment and how it works in your life, if it does. And so anybody want to talk about non-attachment?
Darty, I will.
Okay, thank you.
There's a quote that you have, the root of suffering is attachment. And you asked me how I felt about being spiritually mature.
Huh?
I suffered because I had total attachment issues. And I had to really look into why. And I would see all of these red flags in a relationship, to take an example. And I would say, I see them, I collect them. What am I going to do with them? And I was so attached to the outcome, to what I thought this relationship was going to bring into my life.
Yes.
And even though it didn't happen and it ended, I was still attached, knowing that this was not in my best interest. So my attachment is the expectations that I have, whether it's the expectations in my job, in my health, family. But for right now, it was in a relationship. And you can see that it's dragging you down, it's not healthy, but your vision in your mind is seeing all of the things you thought you would do together, all of the making this beautiful story up when it doesn't exist. So my perception on non-judgment is to let go of the expectations.
Right.
And I like in your book where you said, it doesn't mean you have to sell everything, all your stuff, and you have to be a nun and you can't be attached to anything. And I think Wayne Dyer said it the best when he gave his keys to his secretary and said, get rid of everything. And I laughed because I said, yeah, but then he went home to his house in Malibu. It's not like what he got rid of, what he disposed of is the things that no longer served him and were dragging him down. So mine is my perception and my expectations on
I think that's wonderful, because when we're attached to the outcome, and that's pretty much what non-attachment is stepping into that. Anybody else want to talk about non-attachment? Danielle.
I do, yes. Well, before reading this, someone had said to me, don't be attached to the outcome, you know, don't hold expectations, be open. And I was so triggered, my whatever reason, I was so triggered and I was so upset with that statement, that statement. I was like, but it's supposed to be this way, you know? What do you mean? I have every right to feel these things. Look what happened, and blame and blah blah, right? So when I seen this, I said, okay, I know this is going to help, and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get in there. So I took what I took away from non-attachment was being open to other opportunities. I know I have a lot. I don't want to claim it, but I know that I have some work left to do on the non-attachment, but pivoting, as you were saying, into what other opportunities are there, without having been so fixed, is that's something I'm going to incorporate into
Oh,
this.
good. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dave.
Yeah, as you all were talking, I was thinking about a video for Brother David of what constitutes a good day. And, I kept thinking that for me, non-attachment and gratitude go hand in hand. So I'm not attached to the outcome, but I'm grateful for the experience.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm grateful for every experience. Of course, I'm one of those that believes we create our own reality. That's a lot of responsibility. And yet that's my belief structure. And therefore, everything that I've created, whether I like it or not, is there for me to experience. Thank you, Dave. Michelle.
I had everyone's perspective that shared about non-attachment. But I also had another perspective. It's something I'm working with at home, is the attachment of my stuff. I have a lot of stuff that I need to give up because I'm attached to it. But if you let it go, it brings up more opportunities and more of everything that I don't even know about, I'm sure. Like, I'm starting to let go of all kinds of things that I've held on for a long time. And what I've received in that non-attachment is freedom and lightness and space, and try not to fill up that space with something else. So I think non-attachment goes to a lot of things, not only people and situations, but also things too. If you've held on to this, say, shirt that has holes in it forever, what would it feel like to let go? And even Wayne Dyer does that. He had a story about with his son, he asked for his favorite t-shirt. Wouldn't take it off until his son gave away a t-shirt or something. It was hilarious. And so anyway, it's just another aspect of non-attachment that I'm working on as well.
I've got a story that I tell, and that's that I put into my Wisdom for the New Reality newsletter called The Cow. And if anybody's interested in the cow story, please just email me or let me know, and I'll send it to you. I'd tell it here, but it takes a bit. I think I did it. I think I did it on the Letting Go. Did I, Danielle? I did it on the Letting Go video on YouTube. If you've heard it or seen it, I talk about that. And that was a very important letting go for me, an attachment that I had to something I was doing that I couldn't live without. And that's when attachment really works for us and frees us, like you're talking about, Michelle, is when we let go of something that we don't think we can ever let go of because of the level of emotional attachment to it. Yeah. I know for me, my monkey mind jumps in whenever there's any kind of attachment, any kind of feeling comes up about something I'm attached to. My monkey mind is right in there, jumping in when something doesn't go the way I want. Oh boy, here we go. And for me, thank goodness, as I always say, I love my monkey mind. For me, as long as I catch it really soon, and I don't let it doesn't get too far down the road with me because I've had so much practice with it. and because it loves me when I tell it to shut up, that it does stop. But a lot of times when that outcome does not suit me, and it happens because that's life, that's when I stop the monkey mind and say, no, we're not going to attach any story to this. I'm not going to drag up some past thing about it or whatever the monkey mind wants to do. So before it gets too far down the road, because the monkey mind jumps in on that kind of a thing too with us.
And it's surprising how much story you have to each thing that you have. There's a
Oh,
story
yes.
behind everything you've bought. I thought that was bunk. But then when I was trying to get rid of stuff, and I had a girlfriend that helped to clean out my garage, if she wasn't there, my garage would never have been cleaned out. Because
It's
she
always
was
helpful to
like,
have someone who's not attached to it.
right. And she would go,
Good
can we
support.
get
good
rid of it?
support.
Can we do that? If she would ask the right questions, and it really helped with get that practice of non-attachment to stuff. It was amazing.
It is. It is. I agree. Well, let's move on to the next aspect I found that worked for me was in contemplating and becoming spiritually mature was exercising compassion and tolerance, particularly in dealing with other human beings, mostly with other human beings. What helped me the most is I read a long time ago that everyone is suffering in some way. And that impressed me because, it's true. We don't know what people have gone through. We don't know what causes people to behave like they do. We don't know. We can't know the heart of someone else. We can only know our own heart. And so I repeatedly remind myself and others, like you were saying, I forget who said this, that everyone is on their own, Donna, everyone is on their own soul journey. Everyone is a sovereign being. That's what supports me in my exercise of compassion and tolerance, no matter what we're talking about, because we have lots of opportunities for that these days, is as duality, as we shift from duality to oneness, as we're leaving that paradigm behind. Everyone's driving their own bus. I mean, so many times I tell other people this who wanted, they're doing this and they're doing that. And I go, hey, they're driving their own bus. They're in charge. They're in the driver's seat. You can't make anybody do anything. And that helps me stay compassionate and tolerant. And it just really supports me in exercising my compassion and tolerance. So I'm anxious to hear about you. What do you guys feel about exercising compassion and tolerance? And how does it work for you? Is it hard? Is it hard? Is it part of do you have to fight your conditioning for it? Is it something that flows easy for you guys? Or what do you think?
I'll go to just expand on what I said earlier.
Yes.
So there was a time in my life with a particular individual person, but it applies to many people, where I was so entrenched and dug in that, and I was looking, you know what I mean? Like, you look for bad behavior, you're going to find it. And oh my God, was I looking? I had this woman under a microscope, and it was somebody I spent a lot of time with at work. And I'm not that person anymore. I have totally let go of that. And I can look at behaviors from her or anybody else and really say, well, wow, I wonder what happened in their life that triggers this, or this has nothing to do with me. This is all about this person and whatever perceptions they're having. And it's their journey to work it out. And I'm not here to fix it. But I'm so grateful that I'm no longer triggered all over the place, which made me such a victim, and now I have really developed that ability to have compassion for people. So I'm really grateful for that.
That's wonderful. I'm with you on that. That's really, when we can get to that place, that's a really good space for us. I agree. Anyone else?
Yeah,
I
I'll go.
will.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, John.
Okay. I was just going to say, the further away the people are, the action is, the easier it is for me to be totally unattached to what they're doing. And they don't even have to be that far away, but the very inner people that I would live with, people, maybe certain relationships that I have where there's a lot of interaction. That's where it's harder for me to stay neutral. You
And that's
know,
where we get our best practice.
yeah, I mean, they can make me happy. They can upset me. Where when I go out in the world, I go to a supermarket. I like everybody. Well, I know some people go to supermarkets. Oh, that person, oh, look, Ella did this and all that. I'm not like that at all. It's only the only place I have trouble sometimes is in the really, really close up front ones. And I'm working hard on that right now.
It is a practice. It is a practice. I
Absolutely.
have something I call marital harmony. That's what I call it.
Well,
That's my practice.
right. It may not be possible in my case. That's another story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true too. That's where our compassion
Right.
comes in.
Right. Right. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
John, I'm going to say the same. I went to the supermarket with a friend just the other day, and I'm walking around and I'm just, wonderful to get out of the house because I can't drive. I was just happy to be out. So I'm smiling all over the place and people are just like, hi, hi, hi. And my friend said, do you know all these people? And I said, no. I said, but if you smile, they just automatically find a compassion within you that they feel that they can share. And I love that concept. I wanted to just read because I really want to let everyone know about Darity's book. But there is a passage in here that says, when we observe everything with love and compassion, we allow ourselves to feel the reality of the human condition, especially for those who are downtrodden, struggling in life, or even those who are just not the nicest folks out there. And that just wraps it up in a pretty package for me because I never knew the depth of my compassion. I always had compassion. My father once said, Marianne, you can be in a room with lawyers and doctors, and it'll be the person that's homeless that'll come up to you. And it was because I knew I had compassion, but I didn't know the depth of it until one day I said, I'm always asking the universe or God to help me. I'm going to ask them, how can I help you? And they sent me to the Marion Correctional Institute for incarcerated men and women. Being locked in a room with 30 prisoners who committed some horrific crimes. I was a victim of domestic violence myself, and I really thought the universe or God had a sense of humor because why am I up at this prison, right? But when I sat there and I looked out and I heard the stories of these men and women, the compassion that you will feel knowing what they have been through, I was able to embrace them and find it in 5 years I was there, helping them to learn how to express themselves. So compassion can come to you in so many ways that you think you can't possibly have compassion for this situation. But if you let go of non-judgment and you look at what all these people had within them, all these talents, I found the deepest compassion that I'd ever experienced. So,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm with you. I believe that when we incorporate compassion and tolerance, that we are then able to bless other people with healing energy because they have that love and that compassion really supports them, whether they know it or not. And being able to do that, you put it out there, you flow it out because what we feed the field matters. We are all connected. And when we can flow our compassion, we heal and support others in their journeys. So yes, compassion is one of those really, really good things. So let's move on to our next aspect, which is something I explored quite a while ago and brought me to a whole new level of understanding with regard to humility. I love talking about humility because so many times people have this aspect of humility as, humble, weak, subservient. I mean, that's what humility is all about. I mean, people think you're being humble. Well, in my exploration of humility, I found that it really, really revolved around different things because being having humility is not about that. It's not about weakness. It's not about that. It takes on the qualities and the conditions of egolessness and modesty, and not being, oh, I'm so modest. Modesty being managing yourself in the sense of balance, being modest and balanced, not being overly anything, and respectfulness. These kind of words and concepts are what came up when I explored what is humility, because humility didn't strike me as something good. So it was interesting, and as I explored in the book, what I love about this new thing with humility is it goes hand in hand with self-confidence. Humility and self-confidence go together, but it's really hard for folks to understand. So I'm anxious to hear whether you guys got it. Do you understand what I was talking about? I was talking about humility in this new way, in this new reality. And do you feel it's part of your spiritual maturity? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's kind of a egolessness, which is not so easy. That's a real practice. So anybody on humility and the way I talk about it in the book?
I'll go. It's so
Right.
interesting. When I was reading this chapter, when I came upon this section on humility, I was so glad it was part of this discussion and in your book, because I recently had a discussion with some people about humility, and I said very much what you just said, that you can be humble, and to me, humility and reverence kind of go hand in hand.
Yes.
So you can be both of those things, but you don't come from a place of weakness or smallness or less than-ness. And I was talking about this and says, it's confidence, it's empowerment. You can be humble and still stand in your power.
Absolutely.
And I didn't feel like what I was saying was very well received. Nobody said much of anything. So, I'm making up a story, of course. But I was just so happy to read this here today, because that's exactly how I feel, that we can walk in this world with a sense of reverence and humility without making ourselves less than or
Right.
not deserving,
Yeah. We're not bending the knee,
Right. You can figuratively do that without literally doing
Yeah,
that. Maybe, I don't know.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's respectful and reverence, like you
Mhm.
said.
I think,
Anybody else?
I
Yeah,
think to
yeah.
add on to that, when people share about what's going on in their lives and, oh, woe is me and all that kind of stuff, I think it's all about listening to them and not saying, well, if I were in your shoes, I would do this, or I would recommend you do that. It's just to listen to their story and take it in and say, I'm sorry that you're going through that, and come from it to where you're not bigger than them, but you empathize and sympathetic to what they're working with. And you can't always be in their shoes and understand every facet of what their journey is. And it's really about sitting with them and respecting them and knowing that they'll get through it. Let them know that they'll get through it, and you would support them or not, or whatever. But it's not about telling them what to do.
Right.
That's what I kind of pulled out of it as well. It's like, yeah, I'm strong in my position and where I'm at and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not pushing my stuff down to other people.
I learned that one. I learned that one a long time ago.
Mhm.
I got very egotistical in my spiritual journey, and I knew I had the answers for everybody. Boy, I knew what everybody should be doing. And now, no, I only know what I need to do. So I share what I do, and if it supports others, fine. If it doesn't, fine. Take what's good, not what not. But I don't do that anymore. I learned my lesson. It was a heavy duty one, but I learned it, and that's important. Is there anything else on that? I feel like humility includes self-understanding and awareness and openness and perspective. And I think that all of those are part of humility too. And I think that there's just, most folks have such a different idea of humility. And that's why I like, as we step into the new reality and we re-language the way things are, that I feel like that's really important. That's something I'm very committed to in my life as an evolutionary, to talk about languaging. How do we talk about getting out of this detour of duality? Certainly we need language that creates that for us. And that's something I'm working on. And so let's talk about the next, and what I do in doing that is I introspect, I contemplate, I spend the time to see what spirit brings through to me. And that's pretty much just going within to listen and to be guided by our spirit, by our heart's knowingness. So contemplation is an important part of being spiritually mature. It's certainly a part of my life at all times. Is it part of your life? Is it something you do? Is it something we're doing here just automatically because it's what we're doing? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on introspection, which is separate from meditation now. That's not, meditating is not necessarily the same as introspection. Introspection, in my opinion, is much more contemplative about different things, whatever it is that we're working on or Danielle.
Yes, this one was really special to me. I could absolutely relate to this. This is definitely one of my strengths. I have learned that it serves me well to take alone time, to know when I need to do that. And that's, introspection is one of like the foundations that I use every day. And it's really, it's really important to me. Whether it's just checking in or just sometimes even just saying no. You'd mentioned that in your book. Sometimes just saying no, I can. So I've become a lot better at that. So I enjoyed this very much.
Thank you. Good.
Yeah, I'll jump in for a second.
Okay.
I notice if I'm really flying high, I don't introspect. I'm totally being here now. I'm loving it, stuff like that. It's when things are a little bit off or a lot off that I do tons of introspection, and it will ultimately pull me out of it. You know, sometimes not right away, and I say, why? Why's it taking so long? What am I missing? What's going on? But the continually doing the introspection, I notice, keeps me afloat, keeps me flying. So I think that's a good tool to have.
One of those tools in our evolutionary toolbox, eh?
Yeah.
That's what I think all of these are, really, because they can apply. We can use each and every one of them along the way whenever the time comes up. Donna.
I find journaling to be a very good source of introspection for me. Because I find when I've become a journaler multiple days a week, not every day, but 3-4 days a week, I'd say. And when I put pen to paper, I typically don't even know what I'm going to write. And then, I just hit something and I keep writing. And I have these revelations that if I wasn't writing it down, I don't think they would come. If I was just sitting thinking, I don't think they would come. For me anyway, that works. And then when I know what, if tears start to evoke, I know I'm hitting something important, and I keep going with that. So that's a very useful tool for me.
Yeah, journaling is a great tool. Yeah, usually I like allowing it to just flow. Like you're saying, there's a lot of there, you can think of things and they don't come out as much. Sometimes it seems like they get more, and it's important for me to write a lot of things down just because I feel like, there's as it's in the etheric, and when you put it into this reality, it becomes much more intentional depending on what it is, and experiential too. Yeah.
Yeah, I've written the word "wow" many times as I'm journaling. It's like, whoa,
Well,
Yeah.
Are we moving on to the next one? And we got some more on introspection. Okay, well, let's move on to the next aspect I talk about, which is intuition. One of my favorites, because that's a journey that I've been in. Some people acknowledge there's no such thing as intuition, although it seems to be gaining a whole lot more acceptance than it used to. I know when I was young, people thought it was hogwash, no such thing. about anything to do with your gut or any of that experience. And I read probably back in the 80s, I read a book called that had talked about following your spirit without hesitation, which has been another practice of mine for a long time. I mostly follow my spirit as much as possible without hesitation, which for me had to do with trust, because trust was a real big issue for me, trusting that inner voice. And then I was in a deep meditation with Barbara Marx Hubbard many years ago. And that's one of the questions I was kind of holding in my mind as I was going into this meditation with Barbara was, what do I need to do to hear my inner voice better? And that's when I got turn up the volume. I'm like, what? Turn up the volume. And so then I began practicing turning up the volume. And it can be done. And a lot of people are not even aware of it, but it is a practice, turning up the volume, turning down the monkey mind, which supports the allowance of our spirit to come through more. So now this has become a regular practice for me. And it's like everything I say in the book, it's a lifelong journey, as is this. The intuition, I mean, I love what Yogananda said, that it is the sixth, it's that sixth power. It's that sixth sense that doesn't come from the mind. It comes from the spirit. And it's that knowing power of the soul, and we can tap into it. So I want your feelings on, is it an important part of your life? Is it something you tap into? Did you get anything from the book as far as following your spirit? I'm not sure I talked about that there, but I think so, because I'd already been one of my practices. But is intuition and paying attention to it an important part of your life? I think is probably my question on that. Anybody?
Yeah.
Danielle.
Oh, this is one of my favorites. I really love my intuition. I have a very healthy relationship, but it took a long time. And I liked where you put intuition over fear, right? Intuition versus fear. And I said, yes, that one. And I'm thinking, like, just how it starts out simple sometimes with the gut feelings and stuff like that. Just quieting the mind just to feel, and it works for me. It does work for me. So thank you for sharing this, and loved it.
Thank you.
Jared, when I was talking to you earlier and I said that I'm on this spiritual maturity road journey, but there's some things that I still have to work on, and it's this. It's intuition. I have had a strong intuition my whole entire life, but I didn't trust it. Never trusted it. Listened to my mind, listened to my ego, and stepped into all the wrong places. And then in retrospect would say, well, you felt this way. Why didn't you do that? But I didn't. So I'm learning that. I'm much better, but that's part of the journey that I need to grow in. But again, I'm sorry, but this was just so powerful that I'm reading this from your book. But it says, intuition is that directly perceiving faculty of the soul. It is knowing the power of the soul without the help of the senses of the mind. And that just said everything to me, because wow, how powerful of the soul, because the soul is the intuition that's telling us what to do. And I'm working on that. I find that if I go into a quiet place and I try to listen, and I have the candles going, the atmosphere is all there, and I sit down and I say, now what was that I needed at the grocery store? And what did she say to me the other day? It's like my whole mind is just all over the place. So listening and finding a way to get quiet and turn up the volume so I can hear that voice.
We get those inner promptings all the time. And that's about listening to them. I have
Okay.
become, I mean, it's a practice like you're doing, and we just do it and you do it, and pretty soon you recognize it. And that way you get those promptings. And so often I'm just like, I'm so grateful. Gratitude becomes so big for me, especially with my intuition, because I honor it now. I trust it now. And I didn't. I know exactly what you're talking about. And it takes practice to trust that inner voice. And so I'm with you. I'm with you. We're capping down to time here, so I want to roll authenticity, integrity, and gratitude into a bundle here, and just authenticity, and see if, and I'll share with us on just if anybody's got anything to say about these three. I just want to say that authenticity is working on grounding ourselves. Integrity involves living our lives in congruence with our values. And part of that analysis I talked about when we talk about the 5 keys is what's important to us. What are our values? Coming to that place of understanding. And so integrity is living in congruence with those values and living in congruence with these kind of things that we're talking about here. Doing it. I mean, it's okay to think about it. It's okay to talk about it, but doing it, walking the walk, as they say, right? And what's important to us, and gratitude, of course, is a basic tenet of everything. Gratitude is what supports us and opens our hearts in ways that we can't even know. And all of those are so important to spiritual maturity and to our paths. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all 3 of these aspects if you want to. We've got probably about 5 more minutes. So
I'll go.
Donna.
I highlighted where, and you just actually said it, with integrity, living our lives in congruence with our values. And I always use the term vibrational integrity, when our beliefs, our thoughts, our words, and our actions are all in alignment. And
Yes.
My personal experience is when I'm in that flow, because I'm obviously not always as much as I would love to be, but when I am in that flow, life is effortless. I mean, the intuitive hits come, the synchronicities are abundant.
Yeah.
Life just flows. It's almost like I'm on roller skates,
Exactly right.
gliding through life. And it's just a wonderful place to live. Yeah.
It is. And it can happen more and more the more we practice. I've been doing it for so many years. I promise you, my life is pretty smooth. And what comes up gets handled pretty quick because I've been doing this a long, long time. And I promise you, it's really, it's worth it. Anybody else on all 3? Michelle?
I'll go. I'll do
Okay.
gratitude.
Huh?
Because, living in heart-centered gratitude. That's what we're all
Yes,
about.
that's
Yeah.
what we are. Exactly right.
I know when I live in heart-centered gratitude, everything flows for me too. I mean, if I'm in a good spot or an icky spot that I don't want to be, I just have to get settled and get the monkey mind out and all that stuff. It's kind of like all the tools come into one for me when I just start breathing in and out gratitude. I was kind of quiet today because I took a nap before coming here, and it was the same thing. It was just like, I just wasn't totally present, and I just went to sleep and I just slept gratitude. This is like, I appreciate the light. The light was coming in. It was all, Patricia would have loved it. It was, it's so perfect. Yeah. And for me, it's gratitude. When you center on, for me, my tool is gratitude, living in heart-centered gratitude. I try to live it from here. I'm not always perfect. But when I do, that's when I have my flow. And it makes me more authentic, more positiveness comes out, more possibility comes out, just everything works better. And my cats are happy, everything around me is happy.
See, gratitude is very powerful, very powerful tool. One of those evolutionary tools in our evolutionary toolbox, for sure. Anybody else? Danielle?
I do. Yes. I loved everything about this. I took with this, you had written, gratitude is a sensation that clears the mind. hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I energetically knew it, but and then just something that I absolutely love so much. Gratitude is one of the basic tenets of the new world.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And that's why we're here, living in heart-centered gratitude indeed. Well, we're running out of time here. So in conclusion, the final chapter is really just about the beginning. If you accept the premise that the path of self-discovery is filled with rewards beyond measure, and I assure you it is, then know that becoming the real you requires love and commitment. It doesn't happen overnight. Actually, it's a lifelong journey. And that's what we've been talking about here. And that's something we can just experience because we see that. And it requires vigilance. Oh, no, not that, not vigilance. Yep. We have to be vigilant in our practices. I assure you it works. So I want to finish with just to conclude something from my book that I picked out that I think really kind of summarizes where we are. And that is, we begin with small steps, becoming more and more aware. As we progress along the path, the inner work becomes our way of life. We notice our thoughts. We pay attention to that monkey mind of ours. We converse with it. We watch our words. We notice when we're not treating ourselves nicely, and we change it up quickly. We catch ourselves if we're being rude or dishonest or judgmental. And from there, we seek to understand the reasons with honesty and compassion. We forgive ourselves and others daily if necessary. We regularly tune into our feelings. We ask ourselves questions so that we can better understand ourselves. We frequently bring ourselves back to the present moment. We regularly tune into our very own heart-centered knowingness, the place where we're the most real, and we allow that place to guide us. It's a worthwhile journey. Well, it's time to go. Thank you so much for your thoughts and your feelings. I love that you guys have shared from the heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you again, Patricia Wagner, for your support for creating our Living in Heart-Centered Gratitude and for putting together this conversational book study. And again, for more about me and my books, I have How to Be the Real You. I have a word search oracle, which is a really fun word puzzle book. And I have a book called You Can Transform Your Life. Go to my website for everything about my books and me, www.dohertywesley.com. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for watching. From my heart to yours, love and hugs from here to there. Aho.